Remember hearing about the birds and the bees from your parents?
Ew.
I have like a sick tummy just thinking about it. Or as a parent talking about sex to your kids. It's all pretty awkward, but it doesn't have to be. Dr. Pinsky and his daughter Paulina have written a book for teens and their parents called It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward. And they are joining us live to talk all about it.
Yay.
Drew and Paulina,
Yes.
hi.
Hey guys.
Hello.
Okay, so Drew, you've been talking about sex, and I've even been there right next to you on Loveline for years, but it didn't go that smoothly with your kids at first. That surprises me.
Well, I mean, look, when you're every parent has just produced a parent, so that's just, and we tell the story in the book. The more interesting thing to me, though, is that in spite of these being topics that I've talked about for a long time, the conversation has changed a little bit. And we originally got involved in this project. The idea was sort of backing into consent because that was pre-COVID. It was in the days of the Me Too movement. And I was like, young people are extremely confused about consent. And if we're going to approach that, I need a young person. And Paulina's a writer, and so I got her involved with it, and that was a very good move.
Paulina, you are brilliant. First of all, it's so good to see your face, and I'm just so proud of everything that you're doing, really. But I have to ask you, why were you so reluctant to hear about the birds and the bees from your dad? I mean, I get it, but tell us why.
Because everyone was hearing about the birds and the bees from my dad, and so everyone expected him to talk to me about it. And so I knew it was coming, and I knew that people were getting information, but I had no desire to hear that information.
I know I would start. She would bounce forward with crazy questions. I go, okay, here you go, and she'd run away screaming. So, but listen, this book is not about that. It really isn't. We tell those stories, but this book is about how to have healthy relationships, how to navigate relationships and consent, all kinds of relationships, romantic relationships, relationships with adults, relationships with your parents. We really are focused. We're not focused on the biology in this text. We really are not, because that's out there. That's everywhere.
It exists.
Yeah, it's already out there, done and done and done. But this is, but this is about how to navigate relationships in a healthy way. So.
Ultimately, taking consent out of a sexual context and putting it into an interpersonal context teaches people how to practice consent before they get into a sexual context.
Yeah.
Good to see you both. So if it was so awkward in the beginning, why did you want to write this book together moving forward?
The idea was that it doesn't. I don't need an experience, by the way, is that awkward to begin with. It just was, every parent has their own navigation with this. And the idea was it doesn't have to be awkward. And we want to pull it out of the plumbing and all the other conversations that parents are nervous about and put it in the context of a more global understanding about boundaries and about trust and about compassion for one another. We really talk way more about that stuff than anything about the awkwardness of the plumbing lesson.
We don't even get into crushes until chapter 13.
Oh, that's chapter 13. Interesting. You were talking about consent over and over and over again. Let's talk about that. Paulina, specifically, were there times in your life where consent was an issue? And I don't mean even if it's a capital S sexual assault. I mean even just interpersonal, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think throughout my life, I learned different ways in which I did or didn't consent because we wrote this book. So obviously in a sexual context, I had blurry consent throughout college. I would use alcohol to initiate sex, and it left me feeling emotionally bankrupt and not good about myself. And then too, as a child, I feel like I was put into dynamics with older adults that maybe weren't healthy for me. And I didn't really know the signs and signals for what was an inappropriate relation. And so through writing this book, I think we are able to provide guideposts for people so that when they go through these relationships, they know when they're relating to someone in a healthy way or not.
You said something rather profound last time we were out talking about this book, was that if you'd had this in college, you would have avoided a lot of unpleasant situations.
Absolutely. I didn't learn about consent until orientation week.
Wow.
And, it was consent is sexy. No means no. Yes means yeah. And that was it. And it wasn't a nuanced conversation. It was very black and white. And consent is an ongoing negotiation. It isn't something that you just give willy-nilly. You can take it back at any point if you're uncomfortable. And that's something that I really want to drive home.
And look, we get into everything. We get into gender, sexual orientation. We get into all the stuff that's so confusing for late adolescents and really give them a frame to go after it and understand it in a comfortable way, a non-awkward way. So the awkward thing is not just about the parents. It's about navigating relationships before you really understand what you're doing.
Drew, what's up, man? This is Al Jackson. Really quickly, man,
Hey,
what would
Al,
you?
man,
How you doing? We only got about 30 seconds. What advice would you give to people that are still resistant to getting the COVID vaccine?
Yeah, listen, the one easy thing for me, there's a lot to that conversation. I work with resistant behaviors all the time, right? People that want to keep doing drugs and don't want to listen to people. I know you go straight at them, it's the worst thing you can do. The one simple thing I would start with is saying, look, maybe you don't want to take the risk for yourself, but how about for the rest of us? We have an obligation to sort of make sure we suppress this thing from replicating so it doesn't form more an awful variant. So on behalf of everybody else, at least, maybe take a little bit of risk on your own.
Thank you for that. Drew, Paulina, thank you for speaking to us. I definitely believe that your book will save relationships. It will save lives. And the book, It Doesn't Have to Be Awkward, Dealing with Relationships, Consent, and Other Hard to Talk About Stuff, goes on sale tomorrow. You can pre-order your copy now by going to drdrew.com/awkward. Thank you so much. So good seeing both of you guys. Good job, Paul.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, you got it, girl.
We have a signing tomorrow.
Signing tomorrow.
Where?
premiercollectibles.com/awkward.
There you go. Premier
Awesome.
Collectibles.
Eastern.
All right. Thank you both. Good to see you.